Dad made Golden Child's son the owner of the company instead of me, so I quit and started my own business. 6 months later, they begged for help after the nephew committed fraud. 6 months back, I quit working for my dad after he decided to name my nephew Jack as the CEO instead of me after I had dedicated the past 12 years of my life to growing and expanding this business. My dad was a realtor, and when I was 25, he started his own firm. I quit my job and started working for him then, hoping to inherit the business at some point. I also have an older sister, but she never really took an interest in the business, so I thought that it was a given that after my dad retired, he would name me as a successor. I know the business inside out, I know all our dealings and clients, and I can say with full confidence that there is literally no better candidate for the CEO position than me. But I don't know why, for some reason, my parents seem to have lost their minds, or maybe it's my sister pulling the strings. Anyway, 6 months back, they made the announcement that my dad was going to be retiring in a couple of months, and they were handing over the business to their darling grandson who had recently graduated from business school. They made this announcement at my dad's 62nd birthday party, and I was heartbroken. But I didn't throw a tantrum. I just privately confronted my father after the party, and when he told me that he was serious about this, I decided to quit on the spot. I resigned officially a couple of days later, and since then, I have had no contact with my entire family. It didn't go down easy. My parents were very upset with me for quitting, and they tried to get me to stay, but I just had one condition. They were either going to take back what they had said about Jack being the next CEO and give me that position, or I was not going to speak to them ever again. Because it was humiliating, there was no way that I was going to be working under my nephew. The guy is literally just 22, and I have dedicated 12 years of my life to this company. So I was not going down without a fight, and I stood my ground, even though they tried their best to emotionally manipulate me. I didn't budge, and eventually, they stopped trying to get through to me. It hurt for a really long time, but they were beyond help anyway. They believed that Jack was going to be just as smart as his mother, and because he had good grades in college, they thought that he was a bright kid and would take the business to new heights. They wanted me to continue working with them as a mentor to Jack as he took over, so it would make the whole process easier and he would learn the ropes more quickly while my dad got some well-deserved rest after working for so many years. I was not having it, though, and in hindsight, I'm pretty sure I did the right thing. Because right now, they have been taken to court for financial fraud, and it's all because of their darling grandson. I'm not going to go into the details of what exactly he did, but he fudged some numbers, and that's how we got here. In the past 6 months, he has managed to screw everything up pretty colossally, and a few days back, my parents finally showed up at my door, begging me to help them out. But I made it very clear to them that right now, I want nothing to do with them. As a matter of fact, I have already started working on a business model. I intend on starting my own company since I have some money set aside and my wife is working too, so it's not a concern. But my family thinks that I'm being heartless by refusing to come back to them and help them out. And they have a problem with the way I behaved with them when they showed up at my door. They think that I was a little too crude in dealing with them, so that's what I'm here about. For context, when they had shown up, I had invited them in, but I already had my mind made up. Before they even got to talking, I knew for a fact that whatever they were going to say or request me to do, I was going to decline. Because of their oddly nice behavior and sudden reappearance, I had already guessed that maybe they wanted me to rejoin. And then, they explained the situation to me, told me that they needed me to bail them out there. After hearing the situation, I was even more sure that I did not want anything to do with them at this point. So I told them that I was really sorry that this was happening to them, but they definitely deserved this because they had made the biggest mistake of their life when they had handed over the control of the company to Jack instead of me. He was too young and inexperienced, and clearly, it has been a bad call for them to hire him in such an important position. But even then, my parents were not willing to admit their mistake and were acting as if Jack was just under a lot of pressure, which is why he felt desperate to prove himself and had ended up resorting to unethical means. And other than that, he was a good kid with a bright future, and if he hadn't felt pressured, he would have actually put his intelligence to good use. I was just shocked that they were still getting defensive and trying to justify his behavior, claiming that he was a good kid and that he was clever and whatever. So I ended up losing my temper at one point, and I snapped at them, and said a lot of things about them, my sister and Jack, that I kind of regret. I ended up taunting them about how they had said that Jack was a smart kid in the beginning too, and now it was his smart decisions that had brought them to this position. Just to be clear, the reason they had said that Jack was a smart kid just like his mother was because both of them happened to graduate at the top of their class. That makes them book smart, sure, but I don't think it's the same as 12 years of experience. And if I'm being honest, the only smart thing that my sister has ever really accomplished in her life was getting knocked up at 20 by her extremely rich boyfriend, getting married to him after graduation, and then living off of his alimony and child support. With that money, she founded her scammy astrology and tarot business, but I guess her rich dumb friends actually buy into that BS, so she's doing well for herself. Anyway, I wouldn't call any of that smart, and my parents were actually delusional if they thought that my sister was intelligent because she had managed to stay on her own 2 feet this way. But using that as a reason to reduce that, maybe her son would be equally as smart and hand over the control of the company to him? There was nobody else I could blame in that situation apart from my parents. Of course, Jack was an idiot. He had grown up spoiled and was a total brat for as long as I have known him. My parents should have known better than letting him take over instead of me, so I called them ungrateful because I had dedicated a lot of time and hard work in the company and my sister had hardly ever even taken interest. I just put them on blast that day when they showed up. I didn't hold back at all, and everything that I have just said, I put it all out. They just heard me out quietly and then, they left without saying anything else. I thought that would be it, but then, my sister and the rest of the family started texting me, telling me that whatever I had said was quite out of line. They told me that it was fine for me to be angry and upset with my parents, but they believed that I had made a lot of personal comments against my parents and my sister, and they didn't think that it was okay, so they felt like I had to apologize to them. My sister has even said that she thinks it would be better for me to apologize as well as come back to the company and try and salvage the situation because, after all, we still are family. I'm obviously not planning on going back, but I do feel kind of bad about the comments I made, since in this post, I've put it pretty politely, but I did not say it the same way to them, and I know that I was very petty. But I also don't think that I need to apologize to them for that, to be honest. So Ida for taunting and being disrespectful to my family when they came to me for help after 6 months of no contact? Update 1. Hello, guys. So thank you so much to everybody who responded with NTA and gave me advice on how to go ahead with the situation. I'm just not going to entertain these people at all now, definitely not my parents and sister, and since my extended family seems to be on their side, I'm not going to be speaking to them either. I'm completely fine with it as well because it's not like I'm very close to any of them. I think from the way that I spoke about them in my post, it has become pretty clear that I do have a lot of built-up resentment against my parents and sister. My sister, of course, because I never really got along with her, and just because she was a bright student when she was younger. My parents always seemed to think that she was the intellectual in the family. Even before making business decisions, they consult her first and then I, and it's a small petty thing, but it used to bother me a lot. I just used to console myself by telling myself that eventually, the company was going to come to me and not her. That also turned out to be a bust, and I guess that's why I ended up losing control over my temper that day with my parents, but I really don't feel bad about it. After what they did by replacing me with my 22-year-old nephew, I don't think they deserved my kindness. Also, I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that my sister must have had a hand in it. I'm not sure of it and it's just a shot in the dark, but I wouldn't be surprised if I found out that it was true. Anyway, the bottom line is that I have decided not to stay in touch with these people. For the past 6 months, I haven't anyway, and I think it's going to be pretty easy for me not to speak to them in the future as well. My wife also thinks that I'm doing the right thing, and that's all that matters to me. She heard me yelling at my parents the other day, and she had heard everything that I had said, and while she did agree that I had made a lot of comments and had been very disrespectful, she told me that it was fine because my family had disrespected me first. The act of publicly handing over the control of the company to Jack at the party, who was so much younger than me and had no prior experience, was a slap in the face for me, and she's glad that I didn't let it slide, and frankly speaking, so am I also. When they approached me to help them out, they had basically mostly been asking me to navigate the situation with their clients since they had been losing clients left, right, and center, thanks to the whole debacle with Jack. And I had obviously not been happy about them asking me to help, but the decision to come to me had given me an idea and I'm going to put it into action. I have decided that I'm going to reach out to their clients personally because it was I who used to handle these accounts. All the high-profile clients were mine, and I'm pretty sure that if I try, I can get them to come on board with me. Right now, it's just me. I don't even have a proper business model or a team or an office, but I'm confident that this time, I'll be able to build it all up by myself. And I had a good professional and personal relationship with these people too. I'm sure that they'll help me out. It's going to be a little mean for me to try and get my parents' clients to come on board with me, but given the situation, I think it's worth a try. I'm already prepared for the backlash. I know they are not going to let it go if they find out about it, but I have to look out for myself too. While I am at it, I'm also going to try and get through to a couple of employees who are still working there. I do have the contact info of all these people anyway. I think it will be worth doing. And maybe through the whole word of mouth thing, I'll be able to get started with my business a lot quicker than I planned. My wife is already coming on board as an investor, and of course, my own money is also going into this as well. I've also spoken to a couple of friends of mine who have been interested, so I'm quite confident about the future. Update 2. Hello, guys. So a couple of days have passed since my last update and I did what I said I would do. I reached out to clients from the past and also spoke to a couple of employees, and I've been lucky enough to receive positive responses from most people. In fact, some of the employees that I spoke to told me that they had already quit working at my dad's company after Jack took over and were in between jobs at the moment. Apparently, the work environment had also become quite chaotic and management was not doing a good job after I quit, so they didn't see the point of staying on in a company like this anyway. I was really happy to hear that, not because my dad's company started facing the consequences of passing me over in favor of Jack, but just because even the employees realized that I was the best fit for the CEO position. They were quite excited to hear from me. They told me that they would be ready to start work whenever I wanted them to, and I'm very happy about that. Even my previous clients, when I spoke to them, they seemed very happy to hear from me and told me that they were ready to make the switch. I had thought that I would maybe need to convince them, but I guess Jack and my father did all the convincing with their incompetence after I left. So even without a proper business or team right now, I'm still doing pretty well, and this was just a boost of motivation that I needed. Here on, there is just no looking back for me. Update 3. Hi, everyone. So it's been 2 weeks since my last update, and I guess my family finally found the time to confront me. I'm not sure how exactly they found out, but they did figure out eventually that I'm approaching their previous clients and even some employees to join me. I've made a lot of progress in my business so far and I've been pretty busy, so I hadn't been able to post this update when it happened. Anyway, 5 days back, they showed up at my house and started screaming at me. And by they, I'm not just referring to my parents like last time, I'm talking about my entire family. Even Jack was here, for some reason, though he didn't say anything. I don't think he wanted to be here but just showed up because his mother asked him to, because the entire time, he just looked really exhausted and embarrassed. Anyway, when I realized that it was my family outside the door, I decided not to entertain them and considered ignoring them until they left on their own. At first, my wife and I pretended that we were not even home, but I guess they are not as stupid as we think because they figured out that we were at home, since our car was in the driveway. They started yelling about how I was poaching clients from them, and how they were going to sue me. I would only wish them luck with that because in my contract with them, I didn't have a non-compete clause, so I don't know on what basis they were going to sue me. I didn't reply to them, though. I thought I would just let it go and they would eventually tire themselves out after screaming. But a while later, my mom started wailing like a banshee and it got me panicking because she really sounded affected. I can deal with angry folks, but that's not a problem for me because it doesn't soften my feelings towards them. But when people start crying, that's an issue for me because it makes me feel bad for them, and I have to admit, I'm easy to manipulate that way. So as soon as I heard her sobbing outside my door like that so loudly, I felt kind of bad, which is why I decided that I would just confront them and then let it go. If they wanted a response from me, I would give them that and end the whole thing. As soon as I opened the door, I realized that I had made a mistake because my mom immediately grabbed me by the arm and started screaming in my face. She was still sobbing, but she was also pretty mad. It was actually kind of scary, and while I was trying to process what was going on, she was just screaming in my face about how I was crippling the family business with my antics and how this is not something that she had expected me to do, since it was pretty selfish and ruthless. She seemed kind of insane at that moment, so I was very shocked and it took me a couple of seconds to have her unhand me. But I shook myself free, and by then, I was also pretty angry because of their behavior. I didn't want to engage with them even more than I already had, so I decided to tell them to get off my property because otherwise, I would be calling the cops. My wife was standing right behind me in the doorway, and she had her phone with her, so they knew that we were serious. So my dad got my mom to back off because she was acting totally unhinged, and he tried to speak to me reasonably. He was not screaming, he just held my hands and started telling me that he knew that he had screwed up and that even now, they were behaving quite badly with me, but they wanted me to understand that this was coming from a place of frustration. The court was not looking too kindly at Jack's situation and the company was also suffering, and on top of that I had decided to start stealing their clients and employees. Naturally, they were quite upset about the whole thing and it was coming out in ugly ways. But at the end of the day, he wanted me to know that we were family, and he reminded me that while he had dedicated a lot of his time and hard work to his company, so had I. I had been there with him right from the beginning. The company belongs to me just as much as it belongs to him. His voice was pretty desperate and I could tell that he was trying to sound like he was about to cry, because I guess they know that it's my weakness. It always has been, I just can't handle it when people start crying and it makes me go soft on them. But I had already made the mistake of entertaining them by opening the door and deciding to confront them. I was not going to make more mistakes, so I told my father that whatever he was saying, it was not true. The company was not mine at all. He had proven that to me when he decided to hand over the control to Jack and make him the CEO instead of me. It was pretty obvious that he did not value me, and that was it for me. I also stood my ground with the whole poaching clients and employees sitch, and I told them that it was fair game. I was just doing what all the other competitors were probably doing as well, and it was not my fault that people had decided to make the switch to me instead. It actually just showed that if not my family, at least people I had worked with in the past, valued me and my efforts. And I was not going to be made to feel guilty about what I was doing, because I was just looking out for myself. They had been incredibly disrespectful to me in the past, not valuing my hard work and all the time that I had given to the company, and now, they were just having to face the consequences of their own actions. Expecting me to go easy on them just because we were family when they had never shown me the kind of love and respect that you show family, was just entitlement at its best. And I told them that I was done talking to them. I didn't want anything to do with them moving forward. They had wanted a response from me, which is why they had shown up, and I had given them exactly what they wanted. But now, this is all that I had to say. I was not interested in speaking to them anymore. Before my dad could say anything else, my sister intervened and started cursing at me, telling me that she knew right from the beginning that it would be a terrible idea to try and reason with me because I was just a selfish monster and nothing could be done about the situation because this is who I am as a person, who I have always been. She told our parents that it would be better for everyone to go home because obviously, I can't be reasoned with and I'm too egoistic to even be spoken to anymore. I'm pretty sure that she thought that she was hitting me where it hurts and I was going to feel bad about whatever she was saying, but I was just relieved that they were finally leaving. I could see that my parents were pretty disappointed with how this whole interaction had turned out, but well, it was their own fault. After they left, my wife and I decided that the next time they showed up, we were definitely just going to call the cops instead of interacting with them or even ignoring them. I do regret the fact that I wasted my time by allowing myself to go soft and open the door to speak to them when my mom started crying. If I hadn't done that, I would have saved myself a lot of trouble and drama. Anyway, what's done is done. I can't change that. And I guess somewhere deep down, I think that it was necessary for me to speak to them one last time and get the proper closure that I needed. So I'm good right now. I'm gonna continue working and hopefully, I won't have anything to do with my family after this, fingers crossed. Update 4, the trial is finally beginning this week, from what I heard from a couple of friends who have common friends with my nephew. It's been 4 weeks since my last update and well, he's young and this is his first offense, so I'm hoping that things work out well for him and he doesn't end up having his future. Although, I do think that the ship has sailed already. Anyway, I have been approached to testify, and I already know what I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna go with the truth and not gonna sugarcoat anything. In the past couple of weeks, my parents have tried to contact me several times through various means, but I've always ended up blocking them. I don't even read what they send me anymore. I don't care what they have to say in their texts and emails. It's always all going to be the same rubbish anyway, I know it. The problem is, I have moved on from whatever happened with my family. I'm only looking out for the future right now, and in the future, I'm working for myself, and my family is not in the picture. So I intend to keep things this way. I am in a stable position business-wise right now. I've even found a wonderful office space for my company and we start next week. It's all pretty exciting and I can't wait to start this new chapter of my life. I've already given up 12 years of my life working for people who had no gratitude for me, and I think eventually, things worked out for me because if they had made me the CEO, I never would have left and to strike out on my own. But now that I'm building something of my own, there's a very different sense of so in a way, I'm really thankful that my parents made the decision of naming Jack as the future CEO and transferring control of the company to him instead of me. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to work now and I don't think I'm gonna be posting any updates for the next couple of weeks because I'm gonna be pretty busy. Thank you so much for reading about my life, though, it means a lot to me. Update 5, hey, everyone. Almost 4 months have passed since my last update and I was actually reading through my previous updates a couple of hours ago, and I'm so glad that I made the decisions that I did. I'm doing pretty well for myself now, my company has grown, and even though it's not exactly at the place that I would want to be right now, it's still a pretty significant amount of progress. Considering the fact that it's been a few months since I quit working for my dad and went solo, I think I'm doing exceedingly well for myself. My wife is actually even considering quitting her own job and joining my company, so we can work together. And I don't think I've ever been happier. As for Jack, I know that a lot of people must be curious about what happened to him. I testified in court and went with the truth, and since he's really young, this was his first offense and all that stuff, they were quite lenient with him. He got off with just a massive fine and several hours of community service. A lot of people whom I know believe that he should have at least been sentenced to a couple of months, but I would like to differ from them. I think he really does regret whatever he did and he's just a kid. He was extremely stupid and put in a position where he did not belong. I'm not saying that it can justify what he did, but I really do hope that he learns his lesson from this and tries to do better. Anyway, he's not working with my dad anymore. I don't know what he's doing, but I know that my dad has decided to keep trying to get back on his feet and is still going hard with the business and everything. I'm sure it won't be easy to try and fix everything, especially at this stage of his life, when he's supposed to be retiring. But I'm hoping that he does have enough money saved, and if he wants to, he can retire in peace. And speaking of my dad, I also recently found out that I had been right about my sister having a hand in whatever happened with him naming Jack as the CEO instead of me. 2 weeks ago, he sent me an email, but as usual, I marked it as spam and did not even check it. But then, he sent a bunch of emails to my wife and she decided to check them and she told me that he had basically just apologized to me for everything, and said that he himself had wanted to have me as a CEO, but my sister had talked him into naming her son because she wanted to secure his future. And he had made the mistake of agreeing to that, because he believed that my sister was always right. She had said that it would be better for me to stay on as a mentor for her son rather than the CEO myself because her son had a business degree and I didn't. And for my parents, my sister's word is as good as the gospel truth, so they went with it and I'm sure they're regretting it now. Because I don't think any business degree in the world can replace 12 years of experience, but anyway, the damage has already been done. Although, I would say that it worked out pretty well for me because I have my own company now and I'm doing well for myself. So I'm grateful for everything that happened.